So while it boots up, Pooja, let me ask you if there are any questions. Awesome. Let's close this guy up. Let's open up our terminal. Okay, so let's actually fix this today. So the problem here is I have to enter my password every time. So let's actually go rogue and fix that part. So say admin user all. I guess it'll be all. No password. Let's see what is the best. Slash let's control O, write it, exit. Since there are no errors, I think it's working. So here we shouldn't enter the password. Perfect, thank God. Okay, it's working. So what I actually did was I actually added a configuration to something called vi sudo. So what vi sudo does is it actually keeps track of all the permissions. And what I've done here is I've said whenever I'm using bash, I shouldn't require password for this user, which is me. Uh, somebody's mic is turned on. Nirajan, can you go mute for a second? Perfect. Okay, so Nirajan, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay. So at this point, let's actually close it out. So here's the bash tip of the day. So if you want to use bash and you don't want to enter your password, you will have to go through vi sudo. At this point, let's actually switch our directories. Let's go to training. So it looks like we've actually done a good amount yesterday. Wow, August 17th. Okay, so we have done a little bit of strings, we have done regex, we have done conditionals, and we have done arrays. So the next one in line is going to be loops. Let's go for loops. Now let's actually open up our PHP tags and close our PHP tags. So we know that an array has multiple elements. So we would say element 1, element 2, element 3, element 4. So there are 4 elements. Okay. So now let's actually take a quick look at loops. There are 4 loops that we'll be looking at. The first one is while, the second one is do while, the third one is for, and the fourth one is for each. And for each is pretty much the most popular loop in PHP, and I'll give you the reason why. Okay, so let's actually look at while. Syntactically, while is same as any other language. Okay, where we'll actually say we'll actually set a what is it? You'll actually set a counter. We'll call that, we'll say 0, since we know that array starts from the array indices start from 0. Okay, at this point we'll say while I is less than, so we have 4 elements. Okay, since you have 4 elements, we'll actually say while I is less than 4, echo the long range construct $arr I. Okay, so what is this loop supposed to do? This loop is supposed to go in and print the items. So at this point, let me ask you guys if there will be any issue with this program. Can you all notice anything going wrong with this program? There are 4 elements. Okay, we are simply initializing a variable. Okay, and then we are saying that while I is less than 4, print me something I plus plus. Okay, that is one. There are actually 3 issues. I'm already giving you the hint. There are 3 issues, and I want you all to tell me 3 issues. One of them, Nirajan, you're right, is $I plus plus, because we'll have to increment it. So the first and foremost issue is going to be that it has to be less than, I mean, this is not a non-issue, but we can figure it out. The second issue is $I. Okay, with PHP we'll always have to be careful that this is a dollar, the variable name. So at this point, let's actually run this file and see what happens. It is loops.php. So let's say training.com/loops.php. Okay, so let's actually add in a break, or we can just concatenate. Okay, so that is how we'll actually get the values. Okay, so Munjal has got the same issue too. Perfect. Munjal is yeah. Pooja, can you send Munjal the join.me request? Oh, thank you. Munjal. All right, thank you. See, it's interesting that Nirajan was able to join GoToMeeting, but for some reason you both are not able to join. Yeah. So let's actually wait for Nirajan to join. Then we have one viewer. uh, Yep, I'll probably repeat when he comes back, or like logs in. So what I'm saying here is, there we go. Is here. Uh, so let me save your two. Munjal, can you hear me? Munjal, can you hear me? Just a second. Hello. Hey man, did you get the join.me link? Okay, perfect. So do you see like a telephone thing on the join.me console? Can you click on that for a second? Yeah. Yeah, so what's happening is Nirajan is able to join what is it, the go-to meeting session, but yourself and Pooja weren't able to join the join dot weren't able to join the go-to meeting. So I had to open up join.me. Yeah, probably tomorrow I'll actually create, not tomorrow but on Tuesday I'll create one a little early and double check that everything's working. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, just like ping me once you're on, or you could actually yeah, just ping me once you're on join.me. Okay, perfect, perfect. Yeah. See, I hope that go-to meeting people don't screw up the recording. Okay, it is working fine. So at this point, let's actually take a look at the program, and I'll explain once Munjal joins again. I guess he's joined. Yeah, Munjal, I can hear you. Perfect. All right. So Munjal, what we are discussing today is we are actually going through the loops. Okay. So I was actually telling the guys that since we are done with conditionals and arrays, the next thing in line will be loops, and there are four popular loops in or like there are only four loops in PHP. The first one is while, the second one is do while, the third one is for, and the fourth one is for each. Okay, of these four loops, for each is the most popular loop. Okay, and I'll tell you why. So the first program that we have is we have an array of four elements. Okay, we have an array of four elements, and then we actually are initializing a variable. We are setting it to 0. The reason for that being arrays start with 0, and then we are saying that while I is less than 4, which means 0, 1, 2, 3, print these elements. Okay, now the biggest question is I'll actually go in and add something in here. It should be element 5. At that point, this wouldn't be valid anymore. So we'll have to find a way to get the length of the array dynamically. The way we would do that is we would actually use a function called count. Okay, count dollar array. Okay, and at this point it will dynamically get us the count, and it is going to say since the count is 5 and array start from 0, it will print all the values up to 5. Okay, so let's actually print it and refresh it. At that point, without any issues, it is actually printing the data out. Okay, so this is while. Okay, so now let's actually look at do while. Again, they're pretty much the same. So what I'll they are pretty much the same. So be I is equal to 0, statement terminator, we say while, and we would say the condition will be here. Okay, it would again be dollar I less than, oops, less than count dollar array. Okay, echo dollar array of dollar I dollar I plus plus. And now let's see what this prints. Perfect. It says there is an error on line 18. Unexpected. What? So it says the, oh, I guess it's do while. So it's actually do here and while here. Yeah. So that was a syntactical mistake. Let's see if this changes anything. Oops, it's not. This line 21. Ah, syntax error. See, that's why it is always good to have the debugging turned on. So this actually prints the data even with do while. Okay, they're pretty much the same. It's only that the condition is actually checked at the end, which opens up a case where at least the first one is printed. Okay. Um, Now let's actually go to for. Again, for has the same syntax as other programs, which are for initialization. Okay, condition is less than count of dollar ARR. Okay, and then the last one is going to be increment or decrement. Okay, and here all you do is just print the data, because our increment is being done here and the condition is also being checked in the opening statement. So all we'll do is we'll just do this and probably add a break. That's it. Very simple. Okay, and at that point, again, there's not going to be any change in how the data is displayed. Okay, so the last one, or my favorite one, is going to be for each, and I'll tell you all why. Okay, first let us go through with the same example that we have, and then let's actually break it. Let's actually break, or like I'll actually show you where for each is going to help us while the other loops are not going to help us. Okay, so the syntax for each is, we use a dollar array as dollar value. Okay, we are setting, this is an iterator, so there would a single value in array, okay, would actually be assigned to dollar value. Okay, and there's no incrementation or any kind of fancy magic that we'll have to do. Everything is taken care of. Okay, we'll only have to add a break, that's it. Okay, at this point it would actually print the data. Now let us actually go up here, and for a moment let us take a step back and actually use our print recursive function to verify what kind of array are we dealing with. Okay, yeah, what kind of array are we dealing with. This is a regular list where we have numerical keys. Okay, numerical indexes, it is 0 1 2 3 and 4. Now out of the blue, I actually have another developer working with me, or let me say that I'm working on a feed which was all numerical, but for some reason they woke up early in the morning and they decided that I want a key value pair in that list. Okay, at that point let's see what happens. element 6. Okay, now let's actually see if while can help us out here. Okay, what we are doing here is we are actually initializing a counter variable, then we are checking if the counter is always less than the count of array. When it is true, we actually are going in and printing the value of the item based on the counter. Okay, let's actually refresh the page and see what happens. So something actually happened. Let me actually go here and actually comment this part out. So something happened. What happened here was there are 6 elements. Okay, there are 6 elements in the array, right? Because if we go here, let me maximize it. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 elements. So when we go in here, it is getting the count to be 6. Okay, so technically it would actually look like $I is less than 6. Now let's actually write down the flow, okay, and see what is happening. So the first case is going to be this one, where 0 is less than 6, echo $array item 0. Okay, item 0 is element 1. Then since we are incrementing I, it will be 0 plus 1, okay, which is 1. It actually exits the loop, it goes here and it says 1 is less than 6. Okay, condition is success. Here it is going in again, it is printing array 1, okay, which is element 2. Then it is adding another 1 to it, which means that the value of I is 2. It goes in here and it is saying is 2 is less than 6, 2 is less than 6. Then it goes in here, prints 2, I mean gets the array value where the key is 2, which is element 3. Then it says plus 1, it's 3. Okay, it is checking here if it is 3, 3 is less than 6. It comes here, okay, and it actually prints element 4. Okay, then it is adding 1 again, which would be 4. It is checking if 4 is less than 6. The element at index 4 is going to be element 5. Okay, now we are printing 4 plus 1, 4 plus 1 is 5, and it is checking if 5 is less than 6. Okay, condition is true, and now here it is actually looking for element at index 5, but there is no element at index 5, because the element at index 5 or sorry, the sixth element has a key, has a alphanumeric key, okay, or a string key of itself, and it is not equal to 5. So that is why it is actually giving us this error, which is undefined offset. Okay, 5 is not existent. Okay, so that's why while, so this would again happen for while, do while and for, because all of them are dealing with numeric keys only. Okay, so that's why while, do while and for are not very popular with associative arrays. Okay, the only loop that is going to bail us out here is going to be for each. Okay, at this point it would actually print as element 6. So just to be consistent, let me go up here. Okay, so since we actually are in a place where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements. Okay, now what I want to do is I actually want to modify the name of it. So let me actually see if I can actually do that from Vim. Okay, this is another regular expression. Okay, so the first way of finding for a character or like for a string in Vim is going to be by this. You'll actually use a backslash just like PHP or preg match, and then you do that. At that point it is showing all. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to replace element here. Okay, and we want to replace element with a capital E. Okay, but since there are 6 elements in here, I'm lazy, I don't want to do that manually. So the way I'll do that is I'll do percentile s element, which is the search string. Then I'm actually what is it, replacing with a capital element. Okay, and I'm saying G, saying that do it for everybody. Okay, now that changes everything. Okay, okay, so now all the lowercase elements became into uppercase elements. Okay, and if we actually go and look it up, at this point everything is a little more what is it, organized. Okay, and consistent. So yeah, the last part was about Vim. It has nothing to do with for each. Okay, but for each is very useful if you want to print out key value pairs. So there might be one question here: if we actually used a for loop or a while loop or a do loop or a do while loop, at that point I would have been our key, while $array of I would be our value. But in for each I'm only giving you the value. Now the question might be, what do I do to get the key? Okay, the simple trick to for us to retrieve the key is going to be, we would do this, where we would say that $array as $key and $value. Okay, so each element here, okay, each element, so it's an iterator, so each element's key and value would be assigned to $key and $value. Okay, let's actually print both of them out. We would use period for concatenation. Okay, we are concatenating the key and the value, and we are concatenating this key value pair with a break, with a line break. Okay, so let's actually see what happens. So perfect, so we are saying that 0 is element 1, 1 is element 2, and so on, and element 6 key has a value of element 6. At this point, let me ask you all if there are any questions with any of the loops. Can you explain like how exactly for each works, like you did for while? Yeah, sure. Yeah, so for each again is an iterator. Okay, iterator. Okay, so the way for each works is it actually has an internal counter. Okay, it actually is taking an array. Okay, it is taking an array, it is making a copy of an array. Okay, takes an array and is making a copy of the array. Okay, once that is done, from the copy array, the algorithm that they use is first in first out. Okay, now let's actually take a look at how first in first out works. Okay, so the first element in was element 1. Okay, the second element in was element 2, the third element in was element 3, the fourth element was element 4, and so on. Okay, now let us actually make the copy array. Okay, so the copy array would actually look like array of 0. Let me actually copy this. Oops. So we'll actually be using yy to copy in Vim, and we'll be using P to paste it. Copy array. Okay, so the copy array would look like this internally. Hmm. Oh no, it already has a key. Okay, so now let me actually put this on different line so it makes more sense removing them. Okay, so now what for each does is it actually is going through the copy array. Okay, it is going through the copy array, and the internal counter, the way it works is it actually is looking for the first element. Now it takes the first element out. Okay, it is saying dollar key is equal to 0 and dollar value is equal to uh, element 1 and remove this item. Okay, so this is pretty much like the algorithm. Remove this item here. Okay, at that point we'll get into the loop. We'll actually, sorry, we'll actually get into the loop at this point. Okay, let me actually add this here. At this point we will get into the loop. Okay, and execute the statements and execute statements. Okay, let me actually execute statements. Okay, now we are in here, we are executing the statement. After that, I mean even before that, this element is out. Okay, this element is removed. Okay, this is gone. Okay, then it actually comes here, it does the same thing here. Okay, it does the same thing here. It actually copies the key into the key value and the val. Okay, so let me actually rename it here and just call it val. Okay, because we are actually calling this val here. Okay, it is actually copying the value into the dollar val element and it actually removes it. Okay, and it goes in and executes what it is done. After that it goes here, it goes to this step. Okay, the internal counter goes to this step and so on till the end. So at the end the copy array is going to be removed. Okay, the copy array is going to be removed, and with PHP the good thing is that the garbage collection is done by itself, so we wouldn't even have to worry about the copy array. Say if this was something say like C++ or Java or even C, we'll have to worry about what happens with copy array and all that nonsense, but we wouldn't worry about garbage collection in PHP. So that is the beautiful part of PHP. Okay, so on at each step the iterator goes through and actually assigns the values of key and value and then removes them and then gets into the loop and executes the data with these dynamic variables. So that is how for each works. Munjal, does that make sense? uh, can you, oh perfect, perfect. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll actually comment this out, and by now you all might have already noticed this is used for multi-line commenting. Okay, if you want to comment on more than one lines, at that point we'll be using multi-line commenting. Okay, so now what we have at this point is we've actually worked with loops, and we also have an idea as to how the loops work. Okay, and what exactly are the algorithms that people use to get through loops and how iterators work. Okay, now let's actually close it up for a second. Okay, with any programming language, everything that you see in examples is not what you face real time, right? That is life. So let's actually make life complex, okay, and deal with complex examples. So one complex example that I can think of are nested arrays. Okay, nested arrays. Okay, nested arrays are arrays inside arrays. That is where the nesting. That is where the nesting part comes in. Okay, so let us actually come up with, say, like a student array. Okay, or students array. Students array. Okay, we would say. So now what we'll do is we'll actually come up with an array called students array. We'll store the student information in that array. Okay, assume that this object is coming from a database. Okay, assume that this object is coming from a database, and in the database, okay, we actually have a complex structure which stores all the student information. Okay, so now let's actually see how the student information looks like. Okay, now this is the array. Here I'll actually give a key of student id as the key. Okay, and then there would be another array which would contain the student information. Okay, say first name, right? Everybody has to have a first name. Let's call him student 1. Okay, then the person has last name. Let's call him, I don't know. Okay, then first name, last name. Let's say age. Let's say it is 17. Okay, uh, gender, male. Okay, but are we happy with this kind of nesting? Probably not. Let's actually make it a little more complex. Let us say what are the courses that this guy is taking, right? And courses is not going to be one. Okay, courses has to be another array in itself. Okay, so let us say, yeah, so let us actually confuse ourselves for a moment. Okay, let us not make courses a key value pair. Let us only make them a list, because what would a course have as a key? Okay, it will be sciences, arts, I don't know, algebra, and all that, uh, and all that magic. Okay, and then let us actually say class timings, as in when is the student supposed to show up at school and when should the student be in the I don't know, classroom and all that fun stuff. So the class timings are, algebra is 10:30 a.m. Arts, so let me just think, LMNOPQR, yeah, so it's actually right. So arts would be, I don't know, let's actually keep him hungry, and let us say he actually has a class at 12, not 12 a.m., 12 p.m., sorry. We awesome, he has a class at 12 a.m. And the last one would be sciences, and he has another session at 3 p.m. Okay, now this is one record. Okay, let's actually come up with another record, one or two. See, it's actually a little complex, so I'll actually copy this and paste it. This guy is stud 2. Let's call him. See, I'm a Batman fan, so I'm actually giving. I'm actually picking up names from the Dark Knight series. Okay, if you haven't already noticed. And let's actually make him a little old. This guy is dumb. Okay, and is actually failed in a few courses. Let's actually say. See, trigonometry is hard, so I'll actually say calculus. And this guy actually shares the classes with the other guy, so it's calculus, and it's at 5 p.m. Okay, and now one more record, and that'll be it. Complex enough. This guy is going to be start 3. um let's call him Bane. Okay, now Bane doesn't have sciences and is only part of arts. Fair enough. So we actually have a student or like students record, and let's actually take this array part out. Kind of is crazy. It's already an array, so we wouldn't have to call that students array. Okay, so we actually have 3 records. Now in this case we are we wouldn't have an option, but we have to use a for each loop. Okay, now let's say students as, so we do a, yeah, student id, and student id here is the key, student is the student info. Okay, or let's actually say student info. Now let's actually say, let's only print the basic stuff out. Let's actually print student id, and let's concatenate it with dollar student info. Now simple enough, it's going to print the student id and it's going to print an array because this one's an array. Okay, let us verify if this is actually right. Okay, so what is the name of the file? See, sometimes it actually shows up here. I don't know why it wouldn't show up now. Okay, so it is nested arrays. Let's actually copy this. And let's actually go in here. No. Perfect. Okay, let's actually add in a breakpoint so it's legible and clear. Perfect. So what we have is we actually are getting the student ID information and we are actually getting an array. So we all know that if we have an array, we'll have to go through another loop, right? Because that's how we retrieve array information. Okay. So now at this point we'll actually do another for each in here, and we'll say now here this time remember first in first out. First in first out would be the first one. Okay, and then the iterator is going to take this array and it is going to put that into a value item. The value item here is the student info. Okay, so any operation that we'll have to do to retrieve this information has to be done on student info. Okay, we say dollar student info. Okay, now dollar student info is this data. Okay, and this data has a key and a value, so we'll have to make sure that we store, okay, the key. Oh, it has to be as, okay, we store the key and value appropriately. Okay, so be the let's just call it value. Okay, now let's actually open up with printing the student id, echo dollar student id. Okay, let's actually add a line break too to make it look better. For each student info. Okay, at this point let's actually echo the key again, but this time keep in mind the key is not this one. The key is going to be part of this array. Okay, now let's actually print the value. Okay, let's actually, just to make it look good, we'll add a break. Okay, so all this information has to print except for these two guys. Okay, because both of them are arrays. Okay, so it's not legible, so I'll actually go back and add a couple of breaks. So what I'll do here is I'm saying after every student, okay, after every student add a break, or add a couple of line breaks so it is visible. Perfect. So at this point the student id is 101, the student's first name is student 1, the last name is Nolan, age is 17, gender is M, and this is the course and class times information. Again, what we have here is we again have two more arrays. Okay, now the question is, since we are actually living in a period where data, there is a lot of data out there on the internet, right? Petabytes, and even I don't know, a lot of data. Okay, at this point it is really hard for us to keep a track, okay, of what is what. Okay, so that's why what I would have is make it dynamic. So the requirement here would be, if it is a regular item, print it out, but if it is an array, generate another loop. Okay, how will we do that? Okay, the way we can do that is, we will actually say use a concept called isArray. Okay, isArray. Now here we'll say if dollar $val, or rather it has to be is underscore array dollar $val. Okay, let me close it out. Okay, we'll say for each dollar $val as dollar key and dollar value. Okay, echo dollar key dollar value, and we'll add a break. Oops. And we'll say else the power of conditionals. Okay, now let us actually look at our code and verify if we have covered all the possible options. Okay, the value can either be an array or it has to be a regular value. There is a third case. Since we haven't yet got into the concept of classes, we wouldn't have to check if it is an object or not. But other way, there are only two types, either a value or a or rather or an array. Okay, now let us actually see if that makes a difference. Okay, let's actually go in here and refresh. Perfect. Okay, so this is how we dynamically go into a nested array, okay, and generate the data. Okay, so at this point, let me ask you all if there are any like questions. The concept of nested arrays and nested loops might actually sound a little confusing, but once we get into it, it's very simple. It is like cakewalk. And the best part is we wouldn't even have to write our code specifically to uh, one array. Okay, because at this point, see, this the first guy has three classes. Okay, so it is printing out three classes and the times the three classes. But the second guy has four classes. Okay, and it is actually printing out the timings also of the four classes. We haven't done anything in specific for an array which has four items or against an array which has three items. Okay, and even here it is doing the same thing. Now if you all want to go a little crazy, okay, and if you all want to make it complex and say give me the guys who has calculus. Okay, so let's see if, yeah, everybody doesn't have calculus, right? So let's actually try that. That will be a good exercise. Okay, so since we wouldn't want all this magic, let's actually comment it out. Let's actually comment this part out. Oh, what just happened? I actually heard something. I heard a beep. Is everybody still there? I actually see three people. Um, okay, this doesn't look good. Nirajan, are you there? I
Yes.
think I can't listen. Okay, so you are there. Okay, perfect. So viewer two, Pooja, are you there? Can you listen? Can you hear me? Oh, perfect. Okay. Munjal, are you there? Oh, everything paused. Okay, but is it paused still? Oh man, I actually hear a lot of beeps. Oh, you can. So who's viewer two? Oh, viewer two is Munjal. Okay. Munjal, can you hear me? Okay, you can hear now. Perfect. Okay. So I was actually asking if you all, yeah. So I actually, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. I was actually saying that let's actually consider a case where we want a list of all the students who have actually taken calculus. Okay. At that point, for calculus, let's actually see which course. Yeah, we'll actually be looking for the course variable only. Okay, the course variable will be part of dollar value. Okay, so in here, let's actually get yeah. So we would say if in array, okay, this was a function that we looked at yesterday. Dollar value, oops, dollar value has courses, and now this has to be multi-dimensional, right? We are actually looking for calculus only. Okay. Yeah, so we'll probably have to do a for each on courses and do it that way. We wouldn't be able to do that in array. So we'll have to do, or we can actually do it. So let's actually try that real quick. So if in array value courses, I don't remember the syntax, just a second. So we'll go to in array. So it's needle and haystack. Okay. So if in the array of courses, if we have calculus, okay, if then let's actually create like a student array here, dollar student, or let's say calculus student. Let's initialize it here. Let's say dollar calculus students is equal to, or rather, yeah, we just say dollar student ID. Okay, let's actually, once you are out of the loop, let's actually print it out. Let's say print underscore calculus students. Okay, so I'll actually tell you all what's happening here. We are actually initializing an array, okay, and we only want students who have calculus, who have taken the course calculus. Okay, so what we do, we actually run through the student info. Once we are in student info, we are specifically looking for a for an array called courses, and we are saying that if calculus exists in that array, add the student ID to this array. I've actually spelled it wrong. So calculus students. Okay, add the student ID over to this one, and here after the loop is completed, we are actually saying that print the array. So if there are any people who have enrolled for calculus, we'll actually get their student IDs. Now let's actually go in here and refresh. Perfect. So I actually have a very ugly error. It says warning in array expects to be a array, to be array. Okay, string given. Interesting. Dollar val. Wait, hang on. So it says parameter 2 has to be array. Let's actually. So what we've done here is we actually go into student info. This is the student info, and then courses. Did I spell it wrong? Okay, no. Okay, let's actually print out dollar val. Okay, and let's see, or let's actually do varda. Would also give us a type. Okay, so oh, hang on. Value is student one. Oh, right. Perfect. Okay, so we actually are in the value. So we've actually written it in the wrong loop. Okay, we have already entered the student info. We shouldn't have to do that, right? So we'll have to move it a loop higher, and here, so what happened was we were already inside the student info, and that is wrong. So all we'll do is we'll actually replace val with student info, because courses is part of student info. Okay, at this point, let's actually go back 1 second and refresh the page, and at this point it would say that calculus was taken by 102 and 103. Now let's actually look at 102 and 103. So 102 is this guy, and the person has taken calculus. Okay, 103 is this guy, and is actually taken calculus. So this is how we'll actually search for data inside an array. So if we want to print out the whole array, at that point we would go for nested array or nested loops. If we want to look for specific data, we'll actually use the concept of is array and in array and all other fancy array functions. So at this point, let me ask you all if there are any questions. Okay, no questions. So no questions here. Perfect. So there are no questions. So at this point, let's actually take a 10-minute break. Okay, and let's actually get back at 140 or like probably 145, and let's continue with the session. Now that we have a good idea of loops and arrays, the next concept that we'll probably go to, it has to be functions. Okay, so the next half of the session would be functions. Okay. Okay, guys, are you back? You all there? Okay. So one is so your two would be Munjal. So both of you are there. Rajan, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Rajan, can you hear me? I actually had muted out.
Actually, I'm muted out. Now I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I
Yeah, I'm
actually
sorry, man. I
muted
actually
myself out.
muted myself out.
Yeah. Okay. So let's actually talk about user-defined functions. So the syntax for creating a user-defined function is function, function name, any arguments, and since it's a basic function, let's not give in any arguments. All we'll do is we'll just say echo hello world. See, this is the usual suspect. So whenever we actually write a function, this is what we would do. So now the first question would be, if I actually take this file to the browser and if I'll actually call this out, can anybody tell me what will happen? So if I actually, it's called functions.php. Now if I actually go in here and if I actually put functions.php, what will happen? Perfect, blank page. So the function has to be called. It won't work. It needs to exactly. Okay. Just as a verification, nothing happens. Okay. The reason for that being, as you all have already mentioned, it has to be invoked. Okay. The word for that would be the function has to be invoked or the function has to be called. Okay. Now that we have invoked it, it prints the data. Fair enough. Now let's actually take it one step further, where we would say that function with parameters. Okay. Now we actually have A and you have B, and now we are saying that well, we'll just print the values. The value of A is and the value of B is basic string concatenation. Okay, now let's actually comment this out. We would say function with parameters 10 and PHP random values. Okay, at this point, let's see what happens. it is going to print the value of A and it is going to print the value of B. Okay. Now at this point we know what the functions are. Okay. Now we also know what are the arguments that we can actually pass in. And now that we are here, let us also, I'll also give you all an example of optional arguments. Okay. At this point, these two are required arguments. The third concept is going to be optional arguments. C is equal to, I don't know, C is equal to 12 float. Okay. And I would say if $C double equal to 12, let me actually go one step further and even check the type. Okay. We'll say echo, let's actually start with a break line. We'll say no value was passed for C. Else value of C is $C. Okay. Since you would actually need this break for both of them, let's actually take it out and let's actually append it to this guy. Okay. Now this is the optional arguments, or this is the example of overriding that I was actually giving to you a few, not overriding, sorry, overloading, function overloading a few days ago. Okay. So just a quick example as to how other languages handle function overloading. Function overloading is when you have the same function name, which would say string uh, string my function, where you would say string x string y. Okay. And then you would again use another function where, I mean, you would use the same name but the signature is going to change, where you would say int x string y. Okay. By doing this, what you're doing is you're actually what is it, using the same method name, but you're actually giving it different signatures, thereby saying that you can overload the function, or you can actually have the same name but use variable arguments. So one example would be, say, summation add. Okay. It can actually take one number, two numbers, or any number of numbers. Okay. But in PHP, the way we would actually overload is via optional arguments. Okay. Now in here we would actually say, so this is one, then function with parameters, and here I would say, I don't know, overload as an example. Okay. The first one would actually say that the value is 12, and the second one has to say overload. Okay. We are actually using the same function, but it is just that we are using the optional parameter to send in a different value. Okay. When I say optional parameter, if no value is passed, the value is going to be 12 double. Okay. But if I pass a value, the value overrides the the optional value. Okay. It's actually printed out. Yeah. So let me add another break. This should give us a more better idea. So in the first case, no value was passed for C, but in the second case values, well, the value is overload, or let me actually make it 14 or something so that it's clear. Okay, at this point I would say the value is 14, and even if I say value is 12, at that point it should say 12 because we are actually checking for the type. Okay, so let us check it out real quick. So we say the value is 12, and in the first case no value was passed. Okay, so this is the concept of functions, where you are actually having a function without any parameters, and then you are actually having a function with parameters, and then the third example is to have a function with parameters which are both required and optional. Now there is a fourth case. The fourth case would be where the function would actually return some data. So actually comment these functions. So as a function return data $a $b. To return the data, I'd actually use the keyword return, and I would just say $a, and I'm just concatenating it. Okay, I'm not doing anything fancy. $b. Okay, so now let's say function, let's actually invoke, no, let's actually invoke return data hello world. Now looking at the code, can anybody tell me what would happen here? Because when I actually called this function and passed in the variables, I actually had some data printed onto the page. But when I actually am going to call this function where the data is being returned, can anybody tell me what will happen? Okay, right. So the function has to either be, we'll either have to assign the data that is being returned to a variable, okay, or we'll have to print it out directly. The, I mean, if it is a boolean, I wouldn't store it to a variable, but if data is coming back, I would rather store it to a variable, because sometimes an array might come back. At that point we wouldn't be able to print it, so I would always store it to a variable and then echo it out or print it out or do whatever I want to do. Okay, let's actually go in here, let's actually print it out, and it says hello world. Okay, so these are the three types of functions, okay, or rather four types of functions that we would normally work with. Okay, now let us actually take one step further. Okay, and let us actually talk about the type of data that we actually send in. Okay, yeah, so there are two concepts called value by reference, no, I guess it's by value and by reference, or parameter by value and parameter by reference. I don't know the actual term, but I'll tell you all the concept. Okay, so let's say parameter by value. So parameter by value is nothing but what we have already done. Okay, we will have a basic function, we would say my function will actually pass in data. Okay, and we'll actually print data. Okay, let's say $da is equal to hello. Okay, and we'll actually echo dollar data. Okay, And here what I'm saying is my function $dA, and in here my function, what I'm saying is I'm taking $dA and I'm saying $dA and concatenate it with change. Okay, so what I'm expecting here is I'm expecting that it should say hello change. Okay, because I'm saying the variable is dA. Okay, I'm actually passing it in here. Okay, I'm passing in here, and when I pass it in, I'm saying dA, take dA and concatenate change to it, and then I'm actually echoing dA out. At this point, let us actually see what happens. I forgot the name of it. It's parameter by value, but it actually returns as hello. The reason for that is when we actually pass a parameter by value, it only takes a copy of it. It never takes the actual item. Okay, now let us actually take a look at the other side of it. So I'll actually copy this and I'll actually call it parameter by reference. Okay, okay, and over here all that I'll do is I'll just say ampersand. Okay, to say that when you're passing in a excuse me, when you're passing in a parameter, do not just pass in the value but pass in the actual variable or the memory of the location. At that point, a copy of the value is not made, but an operation is done on the, or like in the memory location where the original argument is being passed in from. Okay, so at that point let us see what happens here. Should be parameter by reference, and here now we actually are printing hello change. Again, the reason for this is very simple. The reason is we actually are not passing in the value alone while we are sending in the parameter, but we are also passing in the memory location. Okay, when the function has access to the memory location, any change that it would make would be on the memory location and not the memory location of the copy. Okay, so that is how ampersand here is helping us. Okay, once we pass in the memory location, any change that is made would actually be in the memory location. That is why when we are actually printing the variable dA after the function call, we actually have the have this appended to the end of it. Okay, so that is the concept of by value, I mean like parameter by value and parameter by reference. Now your question might be, where would this be used? Okay, this is already, we have already seen this in use. Okay, in like a few different places, and the other area that where we would be looking at would be the objects. Okay, objects are always passed in by reference. Okay, but by value we have already seen variables and arrays. Arrays and variables are always passed in by value unless the function actually what is it, unless the function actually, what is it, makes a change. So one of them I guess is array underscore push. Array underscore push actually takes the array by reference, due to which when we actually add an item, the item is actually added to the array. Okay, and one quick way to verify that would be to go back to the PHP website and to look for array underscore push. Okay, and let us double check if it is, yeah, 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 right, you go. Yeah, here it will be, it is being passed in by reference. That is why the operation is always made, or the operation is performed on the array itself. When we are pushing an element in, the only reason why the element is being added to the array and not being returned is because it is being sent in by reference. So this is one example where we have already used a function which actually takes parameters by reference. The rest of them, say like in array and is array and array merge, we have already seen they are by value. Okay, this is a fairly simple concept, but let me ask you all if there are any questions here. Can you please explain the line 6? Does DA, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. So the question here is, the question here that Niranjan has is, on line 6, what does this actually mean? That's a, that's a right question. Okay. So let's actually take one step back. I'm not sure if you have already, yeah, we have actually gone through this, but I probably did not have mentioned this. When we say I plus plus for looping, I plus plus means dollar $I is equal to dollar $I plus 1. Okay. And then dollar $I plus is equal to 1 also is the same notation. So I actually heard another beep. So can, like Munjal and Pooja, can you all hear me? See, this join me thing is not very oh, you can. Okay, so oh, oh okay, perfect. Okay, so yeah, I plus plus is I plus 1. Yeah, okay. So I was actually talking about the shorthand notations. So it's actually, I guess this will be confusing. Let me take this out. Let's actually say that this is the reference. I is equal to dollar $I plus 1. The shorthand notations for this are dollar $I plus plus and dollar $I plus is equal to 1. Okay, so both of them are saying that we are adding something to, or we are adding 1 to I, and here this means that we are actually doing this, where you would say dollar is equal to dollar $DA concatenation space change. Okay, these are shorthand notations. So these are just to what is it, avoid lengthy code. Okay, so this is the magic of parameter by reference. If you want to perform something directly on the variable or on the array that is being sent in, at that point we will be passing in it by reference. So remember the example of array underscore push. If somebody asks you during the interview as to what is, like, give us an example of a function which actually uses parameters by reference, array underscore push should be the first example or first answer that you will have. The second answer would be, we'll actually go through a CMS called Drupal in a little bit, or probably towards the end. Most of the stuff that is done in Drupal 6 is by reference. Okay, and that is one reason why it is a little slow when compared to other frameworks, but it's very powerful. We'll actually go through that in a little bit. So this is the uh, this is the definition, or like this is the explanation for value by reference and value by, oh I'm sorry, parameters by reference and parameters by value. Okay, so at this point let me ask you all, I mean, I'm assuming that there are no questions. We'll actually move to the next concept, So what is the next concept? So let's actually look at PHP. Yeah, because once we are done with these functions, even before we go into the concept of classes, we can actually do a little jumbling of web stuff, because we wouldn't need classes for web stuff. So yeah, let's actually do some web stuff. You all probably might have been already bored with the boring programming stuff. So let's actually get into some fancy web stuff, where we'll actually create a form today, or like more than one form, and we'll actually look at how do we post information onto the other side. Okay, onto the server side. Because I remember we did like one or two forms, we did a few forms where we were trying to pass data to the server side, but since we did not have a server, nothing went through. Okay, now let's actually open up yeah, let's actually open up a new PHP file. We'll call it form get. Okay, now this will be an HTML file. Okay, I mean this will be a PHP file, but we'll also add an HTML. And here we can actually look at how we would embed PHP code into an HTML file. So the usual suspects again, we'll have head, body. The fancy part here would be we'll have a working form. So we'll open up a form tag, we'll close a form tag. The main parts of a form are, or the main attributes of a form are name, action, and a method. So since we have aptly named the file as form get, we'll give the method as get, and the action is going to be get.php. Let's say val get.php, and the name is technically is only really used if we have multiple forms on the page, which is always discouraged. But sometimes there are situations where we have to have multiple forms, so name attribute is always important. Let's say frm1 form 1. Now as always, we'll have our data in a table, or like our form in a table. The reason for that being it's more organized at that point. Let's build a basic form. Let's not go real crazy and build a fancy form. Probably like 3 or 4 fields max. So the yeah, so it'll be label td. Let's say this is first name. Um, this will be input type equal to text. Name is always important because we would need that to retrieve data. Let's say f name. I guess that's it, because this is a text box, so it technically shouldn't have a value. um, I guess that's it. Yeah, now let us actually copy this one. Let's actually go here, and let's actually so let's only take first name last name, and label normally has something called for. Okay, so it's always good to give that f name. So it's for is the attribute, and we are actually binding the label over to the element. Okay, so it would be L name. Let's actually modify this, and the last one, let's say age, and let's give in the attribute. Okay, and since it is a form, we will always have to, what is it, give the submit button. Now can anybody tell me real quick, I actually have two table data cells for all the rows, but on this row I'll only have one row. What is a way to say that this table data cell, this table data cell has to be of the length of two table data cells? How would I do that? Yeah, it was pretty close. It is column span. Okay, we'll have to use it. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it actually merges two cells, right? It is, so the type that we would use is going to be submit. Okay, and here we will do call span. Okay, and we are saying the length would be 2. The name, again the usual suspect, we just say submit, and the value on the button is going to be submit. Okay, let's actually print this guy out and see what we get. And this is going to be no, form get the php. Beautiful. So at this point we have a basic form which actually takes first name, last name, and age. Nothing fancy. Okay, let's actually take a step back and use the powerful Firebug and see if everything is correct. Okay, and everything looks right. The form has a method of get and the action of val get. Okay, and the name is frm1, which is right. Now the only thing that we'll have to do is we'll have to create the valget.php file, which is going to retrieve the data. Okay, now let's actually go in and create a valget.php file. Okay, and here what we would do is we would actually say get me the data. I'll tell you all how in a little bit, or rather we can do that now. Okay, no, let's actually do that in a little bit. Okay, so the first and foremost thing that we'll have to notice is how the data is being sent over to the other side. Okay, I would say Sai Sriparasa, my last name is 27, and I'm going to say submit. At this point I want you all to take a look at this thing. This is called the query string. Okay, now the query string is being passed to this data, to this file. Now the first question is going to be, how would we retrieve the query string? The second question would be, what are all the cases? So let's actually write them now. Get me the data. How do we get the query string? The second question would be, uh, hang on. Yeah, second question would be, oh man, I forgot the second question. Query string. Yeah, the length of it. How much data can we pass via query string? These are important questions, right? So the first answer would be, we would actually use a magic variable. That's what PHP calls it, called dollar underscore underscore get. Okay, or I guess it's just dollar underscore get. Yeah, dollar underscore get. Yeah. Okay. So that is the, hang on just a second. Yeah, so that is the magic variable that collects the query string. Okay, and it actually collects the query string from the headers that are coming over, and it converts the string headers into a an accessible array. Okay, so let's actually print the data and see what we get. We'll again use the print recursive function because this is an array. Okay, and let's see what happens. Nice. So we actually are getting the first name as the first name, the last name, the age, and then the submit. Okay, so I want you all to remember that dollar underscore get is a magic variable provided by PHP, and what that magic variable does is, it actually collects the query string from the headers that are being sent over, and it actually would convert those headers into an accessible array. Because if I do a var dump to get the type of dollar underscore get, it is going to give me an array. Oh, already it is showing up, right? My bad. It is going to give me an array of length 4. What are the 4 parameters? The first name, last name, age, and the submit. Okay, so it is going to send us all the it is going to send us all the elements that are available on the form, irrespective of them being filled or not. Okay, so that is the power of dollar underscore get. Now, one way of handling post data data that is being sent over is by checking if the submit is complete. So we would say isSet. Okay, isSet is another boolean function where it is actually checking for some kind of data to be available. Okay, and isSet returns a boolean. It either returns true or false. Now what I'll check for is isSet. Now since dollar underscore get is an array, we'll actually use square brackets, and we are saying if submit, okay, exists, or if submit is set in the array, at that point only then print the data. Okay, if not, do not print the data. Okay, so at that point it is still going to do the same thing. Now another way of checking it would be, okay, the another way of checking it might be where we would say submit, let's say submit ttt. Okay, since this is not set, we'll have to give a failover and would say else print underscore r, or just say print something is wrong. Okay, now let's actually go in here. So something is wrong because submit is not there. Now let us manually modify the query string where we would say submit ttt is equal to true or whatever, that the value doesn't matter. At that point it is going to give us the right data. Okay, so that is how we work with get. Now that we have talked about isSet get, let us actually understand a situation where we will actually be using this part. Okay, so let's go back to our form. uh, Training, let's say form get. Now the not just these days but for a very long time, what we have are something called spiders or crawlers. Okay, what they do is they come onto our site and do all kinds of nonsense that they want and leave. Okay, as an example, they actually pretty much can steal your data and do all kinds of hideous stuff that they want to do. So one way of tackling it is by using captcha. Okay, one way of using it, one way of working with it is by using captcha. The other way is by giving in a hidden element. Okay, a hidden element is an element that is on the page but it is not visible to anybody, just as the name suggests. Okay, the name of the element suggests. Okay, say type hidden. uh, okay, type is hidden. We would actually say value is nothing and name is no value. Okay, okay, I wouldn't even have to put that in a table. Okay, because at that point I'm actually creating an extra row for no reason, which is bad practice. So let me actually get this out of the table, and if it is not in a table data cell, at that point the table would be broken. So all we'll have to do is just make sure that it is inside the form. Okay, now it is inside the form. So the way search crawlers work is they would actually come onto your form, get all the data that you have, okay, and they would actually fill it in as if they are saying that I am a real person, and they would actually send the data over to what is it, to the form submit. But since we are actually not giving a value here, okay, and if we actually go to our form get and check that there is no value, at that point it is going to be a the real condition. But search spiders would also fill in a value for all the elements, like I've said. At that point it is going to break. Okay, so now let us actually check for that condition. Okay, now we'll look for if submit, I'm sorry, if noval, that is the name of it, if we set noval and empty is another one. So empty is another function where we are saying that there is no value for that function or it is empty. Okay, at that point let's say print this is untouched. So viewer 2 I can't hear. um, no, viewer 2 is Munjal. uh, Munjal, can you hear me now? Is this like a audible issue? Okay, it's not audible issue then. Okay. mm, okay, so at this point I actually I'm not sure what I can do. um, mm, so it's not settings, that's for sure. We'll just have to wait for like a minute to see if everything starts working back on join.me. But Pooja, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So something might be wrong with the connection that he has. Munjal, do you want to? Since you cannot hear, Munjal, can you reconnect and see if anything changes? Yeah. Let's like wait for like a minute or so for Munjal to reconnect. I cannot hear you. Can you like say that again? Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. So what I was saying was MT would actually check to see. I'm sorry. MT checks to see if there is anything in that data. Okay. I mean anything in that key, or if there is any value. If there is no value, it is going to say that there is no value. And the reason again that we are checking for this one is in here we actually are talking about a scenario where a spider or a crawler would actually come in and automatically, okay, would actually set a value. Okay, what they would do is they would technically go in and set a value for all the variables. Okay, but we are actually going one step further to make sure that it is not submitted by a spider or a bot, but we are actually making sure that this is going to be empty. Okay, call, I cannot reconnect the call. Do you want me to do whole thing again? What does that mean? I cannot reconnect the call. Yeah, close the session and rejoin and then hit the call. I don't know, then click on call. Okay, so Virtu has left. Now he has to join. Okay, Viewer 3 has joined. Yeah, let's actually make this the last concept for today, given that we are having so many connectivity issues. Uh, Munjal, did you join the call? Yeah. So while Munjal joins, let me ask you all an off-topic question. Does anybody follow soccer or any kind of football? The real football, the one you play with foot or feet. Not NFL. NFL's too slow. I'm actually talking about English Premier League or like Spanish Premier League. Oh, Nirajan said not anymore. Why not, man? See, that's the problem. You should actually use a website. It's called VIPbox.tv, and they actually stream all the time. They're pretty good at it. Yeah, I actually support Manchester United. That's a pretty awesome team. And we won yesterday. Okay, so Munjal, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? So let me actually type it to Munjal. I cannot hear you. Still can't. Ouch. Alright, guys. So we are having some connectivity issues today. So let us actually call it a day at this point. Unless anybody has a question, we probably will have to reconnect. Say that again. Oh, empty. Okay. We'll actually finish empty because Munjal cannot hear. Uh, so the I mean again I'm sure we'll actually cover empty in the next session. I promise. Uh, but since he cannot hear and if something starts moving, he'll actually feel left or left out. So I don't want that. So yeah, let's actually uh, reconnect on Tuesday, 8 p.m. EST. Okay, and I'll actually get this funny video to rapid share. Yeah, Munjal, Pooja, and Nirajan can hear me. I'm completing the session for today. Let us reconnect on, not reconnect, regroup on Tuesday at 8 p.m. EST. Yeah, guys. So let's actually regroup on Tuesday at 8 p.m. EST, and that day we'll actually go through the forms. Okay, it's the fancy web stuff that PHP is known for. Okay, and you all would like it. Trust me. And Puja, the opening concept is going to be empty. Okay, not literally. Okay, just the function. Okay. Okay, you carry on the session. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you. I'll actually talk to you all on Tuesday. Yep. Yep. Bye bye.